I'm going to let you know a little bit more about tonight's program, Tender Letters. I'm really, again, excited to be able to offer this, and I'm glad you're all here. While text and emails are a really nice way to stay in touch, especially in today's world, very few people actually tuck those under their pillow or fold them into their wallet to keep the writer close. Letters, on the other hand, are special, physical tokens of a person's tender feelings. In this 1 hour workshop that we're doing tonight here with Beverly Army Williams, you're going to find inspiration reading famous letters written by others, and then you'll decide to whom you'll write your tender letter, whether it's to a sweetheart, a crush, a parent, a friend, maybe your favorite librarian. I don't know. The session will continue with one or more writing warm ups and then some letter writing guidelines to help you compose your tender missive. Beverly has suggested that you have on hand paper, pen, envelope, and then maybe some art supplies. So if you have colored pencils, maybe watercolors, crayons, gel pens, things like that, maybe glue, and some other materials, that's totally fine to have because this is going to be a very creative tender letter. Having said that, let's talk a little bit about our instructor. Beverly Army Williams teaches writing at Westfield State University. She is a writer and mixed media artist. Her work has appeared in Nitty.com, Interweave Crochet, the Dandelion Review, the Ekphrastic Review, and other places. She is also co-editor of the website mothershould.com. Beverly co-teaches workshops nationally with photographer Gail Zucker about combining beautiful photos and words to create compelling social media content. Beverly began writing letters in 1975, and she hasn't stopped since. She holds an MFA in fiction from the University of New Mexico, and you can see more of her work on Instagram. And if you'd like more information, of course, you can go to the library's website, and I believe that some of those links to more information about Beverly can be found there on the website. And so at this time, I want to welcome our participants. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with us here tonight. This is really wonderful. And I'm going to turn the reins over to Beverly. So welcome, Beverly, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Holly. I'm so thrilled to be here with you all. Letter writing was probably the first writing that I ever did that was more than just schoolwork. And I started letter writing in first grade when my teacher, Mrs. Wolf, got me a pen pal in England. And that pen pal and I wrote until we were well into our 20s, and unfortunately lost touch. But that the pleasure of writing those letters and getting the letters and learning about somebody else through letters was really important. And I also, around the same time, started writing to my grandmother who lived in Ohio. I lived in Connecticut. And she was like the real life or living, easily accessible to me, Laura Ingalls Wilder. So she had been kind of a pioneer and had done some really interesting things as a girl and throughout her youth. And so I would write to her and ask her to tell me a story about X, Y, and Z. And I would get these wonderful letters back from my grandmother that are a treasure trove to me now. So I like to think of this workshop as not just necessarily love letters, although you're welcome to write a love letter if that's what you feel compelled to do, but also thinking about our friends and families and how we want to show them tenderness. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a little slideshow for you, so I'm going to share that. I'll just click over into that. Okay, so I thought we would start by using the chat. If you're not able to use the chat, you're welcome to unmute and just share what you want to respond. But if you have a physical letter or many of them from a friend, a family member, or a beloved person who do you have letters from? And then I would love to know, why do you keep it? So you're welcome to unmute or share that in the chat.
I'll share, Beverly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I have letters from other people, but when you said that, like, who do you have letters from and why do you keep them? There was a boy I liked. His name was Frank, and he moved away when we were in junior high. And actually, he moved to New England. I lived in Vegas, and he moved to New England outside of Massachusetts. And so he wrote letters to me. And so we wrote back and forth, and it was very romantic, and I still have them. He sent me a necklace in one of them. And I remember he said in one of them, do you guys remember? I mean, this shows how old I am. When they did the Hands Across America, and you held hands, and he was like, we should do the Hands Across America because we will be holding hands through all these different people. Yeah, doesn't he sound sweet? I don't know if he ended up being that sweet as an adult, but I still have those letters because I thought they were always so sweet.
Thanks for sharing that. And what a great encapsulation of that moment in time, and I love that you have that memory of Hands Across America too. That seems really special as a way to do it. Did you end up doing it?
No, but it was very romantic thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't do it, but yeah.
It is a romantic thought.
Mm-hmm.
Honey or Melissa, do you have any letters that you want to share about?
Letters from my mom when she lived in Florida and I'm up north. And it's really hard. I really can't bring myself to open them and look at them. She passed away about 20 years ago. And I just can't look at them, but they're there. And I don't know what I'm going to do with them because nobody in the family wants any of them.
Well, maybe there's somebody in the family who just doesn't know yet that they would want them.
maybe, but I save them. They're warm. They keep my heart warm.
What a treasure to have. What a nice gift to have. Your mother's handwriting and letters to you right there. Thank you for sharing that. Melissa, was there anything that you wanted to share?
Yes. So to the last speaker, by the way, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. There are memoirists who would probably be really happy to take that collection of letters and put them into a commemorative book for you. Not that you have to do that, but I have a friend who is a personal historian, and she works across a wide group of people who have different ways that they engage with family histories. And that treasure trove of your mother's letters sounds like a really great way to, maybe go in that format. For my part, the reason that I decided to join tonight is, like you, Beverly, I have a long history of letter writing. I grew up overseas. And so when my friends moved away, they would send letters to me. And eventually, everybody was moving. And so there were all these letters. And I have these, I don't know if you can see these, I'm holding them up. I have these fantastic old envelopes from a dear friend who was from Japan. And she sent me all this fantastic Japanese stationery that was really quite spectacular. In fact, as I have this stuff out, I can imagine that my kids would want to come by and take a look because they're really into anime and things like that at this point. So anyway, I haven't written letters in a while, but I decided as part of my New Year's resolution that I wanted to start sending letters again. And creating something that people could hold in their hands and read and see and, just get to enjoy. So it's fun from the end that I'm starting on, but hopefully fun for the person who receives it as well.
Thank you so much. I think that's a terrific goal for the new year. And those are just really fabulous stationery pieces that you showed us. So thank you for sharing those. I thought we would look at a few letters from famous people from throughout history next. So here we have a letter from Beethoven to his beloved, and an excerpt from it. My angel, my all, my own self, only a few words today, and that too with pencil, with yours. Only till tomorrow is my lodging definitely fixed. What abominable waste of time in such things? Why this deep grief where necessity speaks? Can our love persist otherwise than through sacrifices, than by not demanding everything? Canst thou change it that thou art not entirely mine, I not entirely thine? Oh God, look into beautiful nature and compose your mind to the inevitable. Love demands everything and is quite right. So it is for me with you with me. Only you forget so easily that I must live for you and for me. Were we quite united, you would notice this painful feeling a little as I should. So that's just an excerpt, so you can see or hear the passion in his writing. And then we have a letter from the musician Charlie Parker to you, so to a girlfriend at the time. You might be able to read this one. The way I thought was wrong, having not known it was right. Here's a proof of my feelings. Don't hate me, love me forever. And then we've got those 4 lines, 4 beats, which, you know, I just think about a musician putting down these spaces in there. Beautiful is the world, slow is one to take advantage. Wind up the world the other way, and at the start of the turning of the earth lie my feelings for thou. To you, shame on me, I love you. This is my favorite one that I'm showing you. I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan, huge, and I had the good fortune to see him and June Carter Cash in a situation live together, and it was amazing. And I could just hear his voice when I read this letter. Hey, June, that's really nice, June. You've got a way with words and a way with me as well. The fire and excitement may be gone now that we don't go out there and sing them anymore, but the ring of fire still burns around you and I, keeping our love hotter than a pepper sprout. Love, John. How charming is that? And then this is from Frida Kahlo to Diego. Diego, my love, remember that once you finish the fresco, we will be together forever, once and for all, without arguments or anything, only to love one another. Behave yourself and do everything that Emmylou tells you. I adore you more than ever, your girl, Frida. Write me. And then we've got the lipstick mark. So I hope what you're noticing is that a lot of these are really short letters, right? So if you're feeling like, oh gosh, I don't have all that much that I want to say right now, you don't need to. Like, these are just terrific short little letters. And I loved Frida's because of the lipstick kiss on there. I remember doing that for boyfriends. Even when my husband and I lived far away from each other, I would sign the letters with a kiss and thought I was hot stuff to do that. So it's you can add some fun things to your letters. And then look at this one. So I can't draw like this, but this is Elzie Segar, who is the cartoonist of Popeye. So he created Popeye. And it says, Dearest Myrtle, I sure am thinking of you and I'm doggone lonesome. Think I'll jump off the cliff and end it all. Lovesick, eh? All I gotta do down here is shake hands and tell him how I make a comic. Hope you're well. Also hope you're thinking of me. Goodbye. Lots of love. So the question that comes up then is, why write letters? So you've kind of covered a little bit of why you might want to write a tender letter. I'm going to stop the share. I would love for you in the chat to share who you're thinking of writing this letter to that we're going to start tonight, maybe even finish tonight, and your why. So why do you want to write them? Oh, thanks, Crystal, for telling me about that song. I'll have to check it out. And Melissa, I don't know what year that letter is. I can find that out for you though. Certainly between the chaotic parts, right? And you can either, if it's hard for you to write something in chat, you're certainly welcome to unmute and say who you're planning to write a letter to and why. Your sister, okay, that's great. Yeah, it's hard when you don't get to see people too much, and a letter is a great way for them to kind of hold you near. Your man to keep things interesting, all right. And your spouse, awesome. So some nice variety there. So let's do a little pre-writing. I'm going to share the screen again. So you know the who and the why you're writing. You just shared that with me. So I want you to just jot down on just scrap paper, how do you want to make them feel when you read your letter, the person to whom you're writing? And then once you've figured that out, I want you to write what tone do you want to take? Do you want it to be funny, romantic, nostalgic, whatever feeling you want to get across to them. Make some notes about that. And once you've figured out the tone, I'm going to set the timer for about 5 minutes. I know Crystal had to run out to get paper. So I want to, when she comes back, I might be speaking over your free writing time, but I'll just be letting her know what we're doing. But I want you to write for about 5 minutes. What do you most want to share with that person? So what do you most want to say to them? And I will set a timer for 5 minutes so you can just keep writing and then we'll come back together. Crystal, we're just doing some free writing and everything's on the slide for you. So why don't you take the next 30 seconds or so to get to a good stopping place, jot down whatever last notes you want for yourself. Okay. So we'll go ahead and come back together. The next section of what we're doing tonight is going to be mostly tips for you that you can try out tonight. And then we'll get to actually writing the letter, and maybe if you want to do some artwork on your stationery, that would be a good thing to do as well. So here's something that I like to do when I am writing letters is get into the right mindset. So a letter always has felt to me like a safe place to be vulnerable, to really say what it is I want to say. I can't always do that when I'm speaking to someone, but on paper, I find I really can. I like to prop up a picture of the person I'm writing to when I'm writing to them, so that I can just see them and imagine them sitting next to me, so that I feel like I can get more conversational in my letters. And then another thing is that I like to put on music that we both like, or that I feel they might enjoy. I'm going to switch over to some other tips. So I have this agenda, which I'll share with you all, a link to it when we finish up. But some general tips, and then some tips depending on who it is you're writing to. So you might try using a more tender greeting. So instead of just "Dear Joe," maybe "My dearest sweetheart." So almost exaggerating a little bit. Tell them why you're writing. Not in a formal report stating your purpose kind of way, but really, why is it that you're writing? So it might be something like, "I've been thinking about you since we talked last week, and I wanted to tell you why." I love to describe where I am, especially when I'm writing to somebody who maybe isn't as familiar with my spaces. But also sometimes when people are familiar, it's nice for them to see the space through your perspective. So I think either describing the room, what's on your desk. So for instance, if I were writing to my sister right now, I have a bouquet of pink carnations on my desk, and I bought them because they're her favorite flowers and they just remind me of her. So I thought, oh, they'd be nice flowers to have on the desk. And if I were writing to her, I'd probably describe them to show her how much I'm thinking about her. I might describe the snow, the garden. You might also think about sketching. I make no claims to being a fine artist. My drawing and painting is very rustic, I'll say, but I especially love when I'm writing to my parents or my nieces and nephews. I really love to draw my dog, my Siberian Husky, for them, and I usually paint in little blue eyes for them. I know it tickles them, so I like to sketch that. But you could sketch just about anything that has meaning, or just that you're seeing. It doesn't have to be super symbolic of anything. It could just be that you're sketching the view out your window. When you're writing to your beloved, here are some tips, things that you can do, approaches you can take. So one is to explain to them how they've helped you to grow, or how your love has evolved. You can tell them explicitly that you care for them. I think that's something we forget to say to people sometimes. You know, I tend to say "I love you" very readily to folks, but I don't really say exactly why I love them or the ways I love them. I want to interrupt myself to say that Holly mentioned the sketches by Beatrix Potter in her letters. Yes, they're tremendously adorable and interesting. And she was an avid gardener, so you could see that so much, and you could see so much of her books in her letters. When you're writing to your beloved, you can highlight their positive attributes. You know, I think we all love to hear what's good about us, what people like about us. You can describe in detail how being together or being apart makes you feel, depending on what your situation is. If we're in a long distance relationship, then the second one might be, you know, why it's so hard to be apart. And during these times of the pandemic, it might be, you know, you're spending a lot of time together. What have been the joys of that? Could be a really lovely approach to take. Explain why you get excited to see them. This one I really like to do. I like to describe for people I love how the world sees them, what I notice that they contribute, what they're known for. I think it's really important to remind people of their accomplishments, and it's a very loving thing to do as well, because it tells people, I see you, I really see you. And you can also explain what they've helped you through. So if you've been through difficult times, you could talk about how they did that. Do they know they've helped you through a difficult time? Probably, but hearing how and hearing what it meant to you can be really full of impact. And then some tips for writing to family members or friends. So I love to start with a story. That's another direction I often go. If I'm not describing the space I am, I might say something amusing that the pet or the kids did, or that I saw birds at the birds feeder doing. The thing I loved that my grandmother would do is tell me stories from her childhood, and I would often ask her for those stories. So, you know, even if it's a sibling or a spouse, maybe it's a story that could tell them something about you that they might not really understand or know. I think any of the ideas from letter B up above would work for this category. And I think it's also really fun to describe your favorite, whatever media it is, and why you love it and why you think they'd love it. And that gives them an insight into what you're up to, what you're doing for amusement right now. And then finally, you could write about an object that's important to you and sketch it or draw it and write about how you obtained it and why it matters to you. These have real value, these letters that kind of place you in a moment, place you at a certain point in time. And I think that value is partly what Melissa was talking about. They have historical value. People writing about the pandemic right now, those letters will be of interest to historians. Even if you're not making the whole letter about the pandemic, that any reference would give insight in the future to what it was like to live through this period. But not just that, just the fact that we're living in the 21st century and what our lives are like is of interest. Maybe not to historians that are going to publish these things. I don't like to write a letter thinking, oh, this is going to be published someday, because then I won't be as open. I'll start thinking about the wider audience instead of this one person who I feel tender towards, right? But it might become a family record. So like my grandmother, I'm sure, just thought she was writing to me, but these letters are treasured by my family now. I hold them. I feel good about that. I like being the one who holds them, but they are something that I've typed up that's available to my family if they want to read them as well. And, love letters between a couple can, generations down the line, be really a beautiful thing for family members to have. I inherited a desk from my great aunt, and in it was a postcard that just said, I'm laying on my cot looking at this light bulb and pretending it's the moon and I'm with you. And every time I look at that thing, I'm like, oh, oh, just such a beautiful, like, 2 sentences. And it's just a beautiful picture of how in love they were. And I only knew them when they were, in their 70s. So I just get this really tender, beautiful moment between them. Yeah, it's a found poem for sure, Melissa. So I'm going to paste all these tips in the chat so you have access to them. But I want to start before, I keep saying just before we start writing, and I promise you're going to get to write in just a minute. There's an exercise that I learned from Linda Berry, who is a really talented teacher and artist and writer. Oops, let me just copy these things. And there's too much in each grouping, so I'll do them one at a time. So for this exercise from Linda Berry, not on the paper that you're going to, want to be sending the letter out of, but on some scrap paper, maybe what you did your free writing on, I want you to find a blank spot on it and start making a spiral. And I want you to focus really closely on that spiral and get the lines as close together as you can without having them touch. So I don't know if you could see that. So do that until you feel like you have dropped the pin into this letter. And you have a couple of choices. You can write the letter on some scrap paper and then rewrite it if you're worried about making mistakes. But I will say that those mistakes can be very charming and might be very welcome by the recipient of the letter. So I would invite you to make your choice about where you're going to write. And then after you've done the spiral and you feel ready to go, I want you to choose one of these techniques or one of these tips and approach the letter in that way. And if you feel stuck as you're writing, pick up one of your other mark making tools, maybe your colored pencils, and just draw something in the middle of the letter. that you think the recipient would be amused by, touched by, whatever the case may be. You can always pop something in the chat if you have a question, and I'm happy to respond, or you can just unmute and ask me if you need help. So we're going to take about, I think we'll do about 18, no, a little less than 18 minutes. I'm going to do about 16 minutes, so we'll have time to talk after. So have fun writing, and don't forget that you have drawing tools. Even your pen can be a drawing tool, and we'll come back together. If you'd like to mute your video while you write, feel free to do that. And when you've reached a good pausing place, if you would like to share what approach you took or something from what you wrote, I'd love for us all to be able to hear what each other did. So either what approach did you take, and if you drew something and want to share that, we'd love to see it. And if there was a line or two that you were particularly pleased with and you want to share that, please feel free to do so. You can just unmute if you feel compelled to.
I used hold on. You added some more stuff, so now I got to find where you put it. Explain to them how they've helped you grow, highlighting positive attributes, and that sort of thing. How the world sees them and how I see them.
Oh, that's so nice.
And I started with my dearest beloved, since I've never said that in a letter.
How did that feel to write it?
Funny, but I like bees. What I liked most about this exercise was taking the time to really write, because I practice my handwriting all the time. There's actually a philosophy that if you change your handwriting, you can actually change your characteristics and qualities. So I write, that's what I do to doodle in bed. So it was really nice to like write and do it slow. Like I wasn't any pace. It was lovely. So
Thanks for sharing that. That's so interesting. Yeah, thank you, Crystal. Honey or Melissa, was there anything you wanted to share, approaches that you took or anything from your letter?
I think I took a different approach. I just reminisced about my sister is 6 years older, and I reminisced how this is probably will make you laugh. I would sit in the bathroom while she was doing her hair. She was in high school and I was 6 years younger. And that's right, sixth grade, she was a senior, and I would watch how she would work so hard to blow dry her hair and get it into a page boy, because it had to be perfect after coming out from under that plastic cap with those big fat rollers. But I mean, there are so many things I reminisced, and I drew pictures, and I apologize for my pictures, but I reminisced about everything that went on when we were growing up. I mean, I could write for weeks, but I took a few more things, and that they'd make fun of me because I would cry if I got a children's menu in the restaurant. So, my parents and sister always laughed. They thought it was funny, but, at the time. But anyway, let somebody else have a turn.
Honey, I just want to say that I think that is going to be so delightful for your sister to receive. I hope you pop it in the mail. And
I'm going to with
great.
errors and all. I'm, because I had to add little words that I left out because I had to get those thoughts down, but she'll laugh. It'll give her a good smile during isolation.
That's so great. And, when you say errors and all, I think that's half the charm, is like she'll see that and be like, Honey was just trying to get those thoughts out. She couldn't even get all the words down, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's really charming. Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you
Melissa,
for having me do this. Thank you.
My pleasure. Melissa, was there anything that you wanted to share, an approach that you took?
So I thought it was helpful when you said, think about the tone that you want the letter to take. And I had decided that I wanted it to be both reassuring and funny. And I wonder if what I chose to write would have been, like, I could write about these things anyway, but I'm wondering if setting that intention first sort of created a different tone than if I had said just reassuring, or just very romantic, Anyway, that's my insight, I guess.
Terrific. Well, I hope that Melissa and Crystal, you'll also offer your letters to their intended beloveds. I want to see, well, let me see first if you have any questions before we wrap up. If there's anything that you want to ask about, I don't know if I could answer, but I could certainly try. Okay. I will say, if you're mailing the letter and you've done artwork on the letter, it's really fun to do artwork on the envelope as well. Not a ton, you want to keep the address area clear, but it's really fun to give a little sneak peek about what they can expect when they open the envelope. I think that's always a really fun thing to do. Well, I want to thank you all for being here and for sharing my love of letter writing, and I hope that this is something that you continue to do, that you regularly make a practice of sharing with sharing your thoughts with the people you feel tender towards. So thank you.
And Beverly, thank you much for a truly, truly inspiring workshop. I was hovering in the background and participating in my own little way and with little things. And I just truly appreciate the knowledge, the expertise that you brought to this writing workshop. I thought you hit on some really pertinent points that I think will make things a lot easier when we sit down and write. I know they were helpful for me. So I thank you for that. And I just want to also say to everyone that if you enjoyed yourselves as much as I did here in the background, Beverly is back again for a journal play series. She's here every Thursday afternoon this month of February, 1 to 2 p.m. And it's just a really nice opportunity for some creative writing and a little bit of self-expression, I think, which is, we probably could all use a little bit of that right now. So I thank you, and I wish you a good evening. And Beverly, that was fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great to be here with all of you. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.